Welcome back, everyone. Today we have an amazing guest, the general manager of Rain, Ben Groliment.
At the time, 2018, the only place in the Middle East which had a crypto regulatory framework was Bahrain. It didn't exist anywhere else. And so this is why those four guys got on a plane to Bahrain for the first time and started having conversation with the Central Bank of Bahrain, which, long story short, ended up being Rain is the first cryptocurrency platform to have been regulated in the Middle East back in 2019.
When it comes to tourism, Dubai has positioned itself as number one. So many people, not just being a tourist, they're willing to relocate to be in Dubai. Even if the talent is not here, Dubai is also in the radar.
That's true. That's true for foreigners. Dubai is an attractive city. We find an equally good quality of talent in Abu Dhabi than we do in Dubai. The regulators in the Middle East are extremely responsive. You have a regular relationship with them. You have their phone numbers. You send them an email, they'll reply to you the next day. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to approve what you're asking for the next day, but the conversation starts extremely fast. Now, obviously, depending on what you're asking for, the regulator's gonna analyze what you're asking for. They're gonna do their research. They're gonna do their due diligence. They're gonna ask you a lot of questions to ensure the protection of the end customer. Because at the end of the day, what's the regulator's role? Is to protect the end customer. The vast majority of customers are interested in simpler products. And they're mostly interested in transferring money or safeguarding value.
How did the founders of Rain found your telephone number? Will be my first question.
Yeah, so that's a funny story. So earlier in 2023, I had started a small startup in the payment space. Not in crypto space, but more in the traditional
In the region
space.
here.
Yes, in the UAE. Yeah. And that startup was acquired in 2023 by Slice. And at this
Congratulations
point,
first, very strong.
Yes.
Congratulations. Yeah. Welcome back, everyone. Today we have an amazing guest, the general manager of Rain, Ben Groliment. We are going to discuss about and what it means to be the first company in the region to be licensed by a central bank of Bahrain and offer crypto services and products. And I know you're going to like this because having the key players in the region on this show brings trust into the industry, trust into the region, and trust into the UAE. My name is Anton Golub, and I'm here today with my co-host, Dr. Demetrios Zamboglu. I know you're going to like the show. Subscribe to the channel, like this episode, have a blast, and enjoy the show. So first, Ben, to say welcome to the show. It's really been a pleasure. And really the goal is to get the key stakeholders, key leaders of the industry, fintech and crypto, onto the podcast.
And the AI now.
And AI, AI. We always have a question for the guests about AI. But first, thanks very much for coming. It's really a pleasure. I know things are very busy. Going to be even more busier. We spoke in the preparation for the podcast about token. I know that many people will be there. So first, welcome to the show. Really a pleasure to have you and, hear your story. I think, Demetrios, we have some strong lineups at the podcast lately. Yeah?
Yes, it's not very often we get such a nice guest in the studio with us. We have many questions because you guys are running one of the most reputable exchanges in the region. So maybe you can start with just telling about who you are and what you do at Rain, and then we will take it from there. Yes. Maybe this will be like a soft way of entering these conversations.
Yeah, perfect. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes. And so I'm Ben Groliment. As you know, I'm the general manager of Rain in the UAE. I've been in this role for, nearly 2 years now, closing on 2 years this summer.
Feels like 20 in the traditional.
That's what everybody says in this industry, right? Is that 2 years feels like 20 in more traditional industries. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Time goes by quite fast. It's a very dynamic industry. So it's true that you feel that time is moving faster than anywhere else. I agree with that. Yeah. So I don't know if you want me to.
Yeah, I think like maybe you can explain a little bit your journey. How did you? I mean, we know your profile. You know, you were in the like most of us actually in traditional industry, traditional finance. Yeah. How was that journey? What was your first experience coming in touch with crypto? What made you make that leap of faith and join the crypto industry? And also about Rain and your future plans and yourself. I think the audience will love to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I came into crypto a little bit out of coincidence. I think there's been two steps in the journey. Yeah. The first step was back in 2018, 2019, when crypto became something a little bit more mainstream than the earlier days, and I started playing around with it, like most of us, opening a first wallet and buying a few coins and starting to dip my toes into it.
Your first interaction was with an app or through the web browser?
Or like terminal, or
Yeah, my first interaction was with actually one of the American exchanges, where I opened a first wallet initially back in the days, and I started to wire a bit of fiat currency and buy a few coins but the truth is that initially, a lot of people in the industry do it out of real belief in the fact that cryptocurrencies is the future of money, and this is how we're going to interact and transfer money in the future and invest and etc. I think I came to the industry with a slightly different angle. To me, it was just realizing that after nearly 10 years, that industry wasn't going anywhere, and it had become an asset class of its own. And as you say in the investment world, usually you want to diversify your savings and your investments. You want to have a little bit of equity, a little bit of bonds, a little bit of real estate, a little bit of private equity, and a little bit of alternative assets. And that's when in 19 I started to invest a little bit of money in crypto, just as an additional asset class in a portfolio of investments. I think that was the approach more than being a real die-hard believer at the time, if you see what I mean.
But Ben, to say, if you were investing in 2018, 19, you were a very strong believer when you look at the prices. So congratulations to you.
These were small amounts, but that was my first approach to it. Yep. And then I put all of this on a cold wallet, forgot it into my house, and then I wasn't working in the crypto industry at the time. I was more in the traditional finance sector up until the summer of 2023, where out of the blue, out of pure not coincidence, but like I wasn't expecting it, I received a call from the founders of Rain, who were in the process of opening the entity in the UAE, because Rain is a Middle East platform, as you know. We have several regulated entities across the Middle East region. They were at this point in the final steps of acquiring the FSRA license in Abu Dhabi and opening the entity here in the UAE. And they were looking for an SEO, for a general manager to run the business here.
Awesome.
And so that's how willingly, but
I have so many
not
questions.
Forecasted.
How did the founders of Rain found your telephone number? Will be my first question.
Yeah, so that's a funny story. So earlier in 2023, I had started a small startup in the payment space, not in crypto space, but more in the traditional
in the region
space.
here.
Yes, in the UAE. Yeah. And that startup was acquired in 2023 by Slice. And at this
congratulations
point,
first, very strong. Congratulations, yeah.
Thank you. But
you exited the
yes. So when my startup was incorporated into Slice, I left in May 2023, and I thought, okay, I had other ideas of things that I wanted to do. Yeah. Not associated with crypto at all, and I thought, okay, we're at the end of May. I've never had a long break for the summer in my entire career. It's a good opportunity to actually take a good strong summer with my kids, my wife. I thought like, okay, I have other things I want to do, but it will wait. It will wait for September.
Anton is laughing because I did the same thing.
Yes, yeah. But he also, I think it's very common.
I think it's very common.
When startup founders, when they do the exit, they need I don't know if it was for you like this, but you need a kind of a timeout, right?
Yes,
actually, mentally more than physically. I don't know if it was like this for you.
Yeah, I think it was more the calendar, the time of the year. You're in May. Yeah. You live in the UAE. You know that in a month's time, like people are gonna go. It's gonna get too warm.
Yes.
It was more of an opportunistic moment of saying, okay, I can enjoy that summer without a single email. How many times in your career does that happen?
Yes.
Not many times. So I took a 3 month off, and in the middle of July, I'm in the Alps, in France, with my kids, and my phone rings, and so it's a call from Rain. And they got my phone number from a headhunter that we know in common. And they contacted that headhunter to find candidates. And this headhunter told them, oh, well, why don't you call Ben? He's got nothing to do these days. Maybe it'll be a match.
That's a strong strong reference.
I was maybe the last option. I don't know. But anyway.
You already called the first 10. Why don't you also call Ben?
But we got along really fast with the founders at Rain, on obviously the project, but most importantly on the values.
Yes.
And I think that's what really got me excited. It's that Rain and the founders of Rain have very, very strong values of what they want to do in terms of how they want to run a crypto platform. And I think that's also one of the key differentiators of Rain in the market. Is that angle in terms of the ethics, the values, and how do we want to have a platform in 10 years time that we're proud of?
Okay. Ben,
that spoke to me.
Yeah, and you told us a little bit about how you joined Rain, but in the preparation for the podcast, you also told us a little bit about how the story is of how Rain came about, which I thought was very interesting. So Rabbi, in one of our guests from one of the previous podcasts, which we say hi to Rabbi.
Shout out to
Rabbi. Can you tell maybe a little bit to the audience from your perspective, knowing the background story of Rain, and also looking into the future, if you can share something a little bit, how do you see the future of Rain and the industry and the region from your perspective? You can paint it a little bit for the audience, because I think it was very interesting when you shared it in the preparation for the podcast.
Yeah, it's true that the story of how Rain was started is very interesting. It's the story of two childhood friends, Joseph and AJ, two American childhood friends, who in the first years of their career started working in the crypto industry in the US. And very early on, we're talking here about 2015, AJ and Joseph realized that the Middle East was a region where there was a lot of crypto activity and crypto demand, but it was also a region that was underserviced from an exchange perspective. And they never set foot in the Middle East before, but they thought, okay, there is an opportunity here to create a regulated exchange which will service the Middle East region properly. And with that idea in mind, they started looking into the Middle East, started doing a little bit of analysis and trying to figure out how it worked. And in that analysis phase, they met with the other two co-founders at Rain. We have a Saudi co-founder and also an Egyptian co-founder. And the four of them started Rain. The two regional co-founders had the real local understanding and business culture and understanding how you approach regulators and government agencies. They were also in the crypto industry for a while. And AJ and Joseph came with the willingness to open an exchange here. At the time, 2018, the only place in the Middle East which had a crypto regulatory framework was Bahrain. It didn't exist anywhere else. And so this is why all of those four guys got on a plane to Bahrain for the first time and started having conversation with the Central Bank of Bahrain, which, long story short, ended up being the first, Rain is the first cryptocurrency platform to have been regulated in the Middle East back in 2019.
Very strong.
So it's a good story.
I think we have heard it before from Rabi, also from Talal, one of our previous guests from CoinMina, that Bahrain was the key place for financial innovation, let's say like that. And also you told us a little bit before from your knowledge that it also extended beyond the recent innovation in the crypto industry, but it was something that happened for decades previously. So it seems that this region, obviously with Bahrain seems to be the leader, it's kind of the right environment for the innovators and pioneers to come and speak to serious institutions to try to get a license, because you say license brings trust and provides credibility to the platforms. Do you see it like that? Do you understand it like that as well?
Yeah, I don't know if Bahrain is the leader, but what is clear is that Bahrain has been at the avant-garde of financial services as a whole for a number of years. Back into the 80s, 1980s, 1990s, Bahrain was the financial hub of the Middle East, where most of the global banks had headquarters at the time. And then that spirit of innovation remained. And we're talking about cryptocurrencies and the fact that they were the first, but it's also the case with their fintech initiatives. The Central Bank of Bahrain has always been at the very avant-garde of fintech innovation as well as a whole, not necessarily blockchain and crypto related. So it's very interesting what they do in terms of thought leadership. Now, obviously, Bahrain is also a smaller country. The UAE has become a major financial hub in the region, and Saudi Arabia, being the biggest economy, obviously has now more recently attracted important capital and large firms, whether it's on the startup side or on the established company side, more recently,
Okay. And to continue on the thoughts about Rain, can you tell us a little bit like how does Rain look like also here in the country, in the UAE, and kind of if you can share a little bit for the audience the future?
Maybe he can bridge the gap. Although we're talking about Rain Bahrain, he lives in Dubai.
No.
Maybe we can understand what is he doing here with us.
Yes,
Yeah. So the ambition was always to bring a regulated proposition to the end customer in the Middle East. So obviously we started in Bahrain because that was the first place to start from. That was the only option at the time. But when the UAE
started growing.
When the UAE launched their regulation,
Yes.
obviously for us it was a no-brainer. We needed to also open an entity here to be able to be regulated here and service our local community through a locally regulated entity. It's important. So this is why we now have, I guess in parallel, two regulated entities operating, offering similar services, not exactly the same, but similar. But it was important to be closer to our customers. The future, you're asking about the future, is obviously to continue to expand that offering across the Middle East region as a first step, beyond eventually. But Saudi Arabia being clearly on our radar, Turkey being in process. As you know, Turkey has made huge strides in order to regulate that space as well. So we are in the process of license with Turkey right now. So we're going to continue to follow that strategy going forward.
Are the offices located in Dubai or in Abu Dhabi or in both cities?
Yes, so we have offices in both cities. We are right now operating all of our customer services out of Abu Dhabi, because this is where we are regulated with the FSRA, the regulator of ADGM. We also have an office in Dubai, mostly for support functions, especially in terms of software development. So we operate those two. It's easier to source talent. I
also found it is easier to source talent in Dubai.
I don't know if it's easier to source talent in Dubai, but it's easier to source talent when you have two offices. Because in that case, you can cater to the right candidate.
But not only that, when it comes to tourism, Dubai has positioned itself as number one. So many people, not just being a tourist, they're willing to relocate to be in Dubai. Even if the talent is not here, Dubai is also in the radar.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true for foreigners. Dubai is an attractive city. We find an equally good quality of talent in Abu Dhabi than we do in Dubai. Obviously, the pool's slightly bigger in Dubai in terms of talent, but the quality is similar.
Yes. And just to ask you, when we're talking about these two offices, and maybe it's a bit of a too far in the future question, but do you have also ambitions to get the licensed by the local regulator in Dubai? And kind of how are your thoughts around that? Because it's always a good understanding between, it's almost, would not say they're competing as regulators or as cities, but they're more kind of complementary, right?
Correct.
Do you see opportunities or plans for you also as well in Dubai?
And I totally agree with what you're saying. That's the right word. They are complementary.
Yeah.
Their regulatory frameworks are similar, but they allow different things, and they also allow to service different markets. ADGM is an offshore jurisdiction. Dubai, VARA, the regulator of Dubai, is an onshore regulator.
Yes.
So officially, if you wish to service UAE nationals, and if you wish to service UAE residents or Dubai residents, it is obviously best to have a VARA license.
Yes.
If you want to service international customers, your offshore entity in FSRA allows you to do that. There's crossovers between both, and both can, to an extent, permit you to do the crossovers. But nonetheless, it's not also the same product and services that you're allowed to do. So the short answer to your question is yes. There is value in having that complementarity.
Okay.
But that obviously requires that then you have an additional entity with additional personnel. There needs to be the right Chinese walls between those entities. They need to operate in fully segregated ways. Yeah. And then you go back to the problem of talent and sourcing these talent. And I think actually in the industry right now, in the nascent crypto industry in the UAE, talent is sometimes an issue.
And maybe just to add to that is that the right team and the right licensing framework creates and enables trust with the clients, with the community, with the ecosystem. But we had also an interesting thoughts previously that one aspect might still be missing, which I think is objective, is actually the user experience, which we keep on always repeating as an industry, that for all of these amazing products that we have in the crypto industry and in the fintech industry by extension, many times it's not accessible or easy for the end user, right? Because we all kind of expect that you tap something, you swipe something and off you go, but it's more reality. Move it from the main account to the margin account. And then do I do the coin margin perpetual or I do the stable coin margin perpetual? Imagine like what questions I'm even asking, right?
But many people still do not understand what is a margin account.
No, 100%. You know?
And still maybe most of them do not understand what is a perpetual. Or,
which is a crypto-specific product, actually. Perpetual futures is a crypto-specific product. How do you see it? Because I know you had some interesting thoughts, that you shared before. How do you see it as a barrier, but also as an opportunity, and particularly for Rain as well?
That is true. That it's one of the specificities of the crypto industry is that back in the days, the platform started growing and adding additional services and adding bells and whistles to their platforms. And now you have large platforms that have an immense amount of product and services on their platforms. Yeah. And it's sometimes difficult to make sense of what is what and what is good for me as an investor based on my risk appetite and my financial literacy to what is not. I think some of those larger global platforms have started finding solutions to this. We have as well at Rain started to dissociate those two. When you sign up on Rain right now, you can use our Rain platform, our Rain app, which is catered to the beginner investor or the investor that wants to trade simple products and spot products and things that are easy and very simple to use. And then we have also a couple of years ago started a more advanced products called Rain Pro. And Rain Pro, available on our Bahrain entity at this point, is catered to more advanced users that really want to understand a full order book, that want to be able to trade with different order types. And so I think eventually we need to realize, and I think traditional finance and traditional bankings have solved that problem a long time ago. If you have a basic account, you don't have access to all the most advanced products and services that the banks might offer.
Correct.
If you're an employee of a company and your earnings are quite low and your financial literacy is quite low, the bank is not going to offer you to buy those most advanced structured products. No. In order to buy structured products, you need to demonstrate to the bank that you have the risk appetite, that you have the right financial knowledge, and that you have the right disposable income to qualify for those most advanced products. And those three criterias are mandatory in order for the bank to offer you more advanced products. I think in the crypto industry, we're going to eventually come to this as we mature to an offering that protects the customers that have little information about or more basic information about what they want to buy, to the more advanced traders that want riskier products with a lot of leverage, for example.
I was also, like we were discussing it before the show, I was also thinking that America was leading the way when it comes to UI, UX. And we have seen so many beautiful examples in the US, like Robinhood, like Coinbase, from onboarding to the first trading experience of the user. But nowadays we have seen a lot of nice examples in Asia, a lot of nice examples in the Middle East, and you guys are one of the nice examples. How did you come across and of implementing such a more intuitive UI experience? Did you go and hire a new head of design? Did you create a new specific group that is called onboarding, and this group just do onboarding? How did you come across this kind of innovation in your platform?
I think, and look here, credit to Joseph, who's one of our co-founders and CEO of the company, who's been leading on the product side. It's been embedded in our culture since day one. Since day one, we came saying we want to be a regulated crypto platform with the right governance, with the right ethics. We want to safeguard the interest of our customers. We want to be the safe platform. So when you're in that mindset, you don't create complex products. You create easily readable products that are simple to use, that leave no space for doubt in the user's mind. But I think that it sounds obvious when you say it today, but if you backtrack into 2018, 2019, 2020, when the vast majority of the centralized exchanges around the world were having huge growth, mostly unregulated, it wasn't the obvious choice at the time. And this is when those platforms became a little bit clunky because of the speed of growth that those platforms lived through. I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you remember the crypto bull run of 2020-21. Sure. It was crazy at the time, right? The platforms didn't have the time to completely rethink their UI. They were adding products and services as fast as possible because there was so much demand.
Correct.
I think we came from a slightly different angle to this. And that's what explains the fact that our UI has remained very readable, very, very clean, very user-friendly.
And when you look at the products and services that you have, and also the experience that people have from that, can you share a little bit more, like, what is the most, by activity, the most used product that you have for the clients in the region? Kind of what does the region want, like in terms of the product? Is it a simple a spot transaction with an order book? Is it a swap? Is it borrowing and lending? Where do you see the most activity? Like, give us a little bit feeling. How does the region tick? You know, how does it feel?
So I'm gonna have an answer to this, which I think is not the one you're expecting. Okay. And that's one of the discoveries I've made when I arrived in the industry. When I arrived in the industry for the first time, I thought that the vast majority of the activity was going to be on altcoins and a lot of leverage products and derivatives and etc. Don't get me wrong. This is where a lot of the revenue for exchanges come from.
Yes.
Nonetheless, your question is about what do people want.
Exactly, activity.
It's not the same thing, because these complex products or very, I guess, niche products are extremely profitable for exchanges, but it's a very small number of customers that actually use those. The vast majority of customers are interested in simpler products, and they're mostly interested in transferring money or safeguarding value.
Yes.
Buy and hold.
So the buy and hold element of safeguarding or making an investment long term, or when you live in a country that has a lot of inflation, it's also just making sure that the value of what you have is not diluted by the inflation of the country that you live in. That's a big use case. But the biggest use case is transferring value abroad. It's cross-border payments. Is how do I pay someone, and how do I send US dollars here or there? And it's the stable coin use case at the end of the day. And we see that on platforms as well. The immense majority of volume is stable coins.
I thought it would be Bitcoin.
Wow.
I thought the first action.
This is crazy. Yeah.
I thought the first action of the retail client will be just to buy a fraction of a Bitcoin.
Yeah, but Anton knows that very well. So I'm not. And I'm sure you're a believer in this. But look, if you look at the trading volumes,
Yes.
well, I don't know what it is today, but roughly, usually, the daily trading volume of stablecoins, USDT being the first one, but USDC and on all of them, Paxos, etc. That's 4 or 5 times the trading volume of Bitcoin, which is the biggest cryptocurrency.
Yes.
If I exclude stablecoins. So when you think about that number, to answer your question more directly, what do people want? They want the ability to transfer wealth, because that's the main use case of stablecoin, is being able to transfer an amount of money to yourself elsewhere or to someone else. And that remains a vast majority of our client demand. And so this is why a big part of what we do is on-ramping, off-ramping.
And you would say that then the dollar stablecoins hold a particular dominance, and maybe your thoughts also a little bit, because we are many times talking about the AED stablecoin. Talking about the future, do you see an angle for that, an opportunity, and what kind of opportunity that would look like?
Yeah, I think that's a critical topic for the future. Look, we're very skewed in the region, because in the region, our fiat currencies are pegged to the dollar in the GCC. So obviously, the US dollar-based stablecoins have a dominant place in the flows of funds when you look at stablecoin usage in the region. In the future, I'm very interested in seeing what the dirham stablecoin is going to look like. I think it's a great initiative. I think it's going to help the entire financial industry, not crypto industry, financial industry, to make inroads into using cryptocurrency-based coins or tokens. So I think there's a huge amount of potential for it. Now the devil is in the details of how do we implement it? How do we make sure that we gain adoption for those type of coins? How fragmented that business is going to be? Because the stablecoin business, whether we like it or not, is not that fragmented. The huge amount of that liquidity sits with one or two coins, right?
Yes.
In the UAE, when those are going to be launched, how many are there going to be? If it's one, it's not the same thing in terms of liquidity acquisition and traction than if it's 12.
There is a rumor out there for 4. I do not know if
Yes. I know that maybe you can tell us. I think there's only one that's approved by the central bank at the moment, dirham stablecoin.
I personally don't know.
Okay.
I've heard different rumors, but none of them have been launched yet.
That's true.
Yes.
So the usability is going to be a question. How are they going to build traction on those coins? What's going to be the distribution of those coins? So the availability for people to actually buy them and exchange them and etc. And then you could also argue what's going to be the interoperability of those coins with other coins, because it's great to buy a dirham coin, or dirham stable coin, but then how do you exchange that?
Exactly.
So you're obviously going to need platforms like Rain to do the role of exchanging those dirham stable coins with fiat dirhams, or with other stables or other cryptos.
And then the inventory as well. The inventory plays a big...
The liquidity providers and the market makers,
Yes, look at Tether now. They need to have a percentage in government bonds. So maybe there will be some regulations with the stable coins in the region. Maybe not immediate, but maybe in the future. Because when Tether was launched, all the inventory was cash, I believe.
Yes, I think originally it was. They didn't have access to U.S. Treasury, or actually the U.S. banking system, so it was a bit convoluted story but I think today Tether is very strong. Circle as well. Circle is here a bit more present in the region.
And Circle is getting ready for an IPO. Again, rumors.
Rumors, yeah. But
you know that the Circle growth rates are growing much faster than the Tether growth rates these days.
Yes.
And that's due, I believe, to their regulatory setup globally. Which gives institutional companies the interest in using their coins, mostly.
And Ripple nowadays launched their own stablecoin, which is growing also extremely fast, I believe.
Yes. But I think it's also important you mentioned that it's that, again, regulatory trust, that enables access. Maybe if you can share a little bit, how does it look like at Rain when you want to list a cryptocurrency, a stable coin, a coin or a token? If maybe for the audience, because I know always people are wondering, like, how does it happen? Why do you decide to list one? Why would you list Trump coin or not list Trump coin as an example, right? Can you share a little bit like your thoughts, like how does this process look like, particularly at Rain, for instance?
Yes. Okay, so there's different factors that come into the decision of listing a coin or not. One is obviously demand. That's number one.
Okay.
So we need to assess. So we have a team at Rain in charge of coin listing, and they do a bit of research.
Is it a committee or a team?
Sorry?
Is it a committee or a team?
No, so we have a team.
Yep.
A team. So we have people. We have it's led by one person that we actually jokingly call the master of coin internally at Rain.
Strong.
And so their role is to first of all assess demand. How much liquidity is there on that platform, on that coin? How much demand do we see from our customers? Do some surveys for our customer base to understand if there's real demand to really use it. Because it sounds obvious, but the first thing is that you don't want to use a coin that is not going to get used. Yes. In that case, it's just making the platform more crowded than you need, and there's no value in doing it. Yeah. So that's the number one factor. The second factor is the operational factor. Which is, okay, we're going to list that coin, but on which chain is it? Mm-hmm. How am I going to manage the custody of this? Mm-hmm. My technology providers, from a custody standpoint, are they able to provide the custody wallets and safety for that coin?
Yes.
Is it easy to transfer in and out? So there's that operational element. Do I have enough liquidity providers that market make on that coin?
Yes.
Because if I offer coins to a customer, but those customers can't buy and sell it because there is not enough market making, then you end up having customers that are stuck with their coins. And guess what? When they're stuck with their coins, who are they going to blame first? The platform that offered those coins. So we don't want to run that risk. So that's the operational element. And thirdly, because Rain only operates regulated entities, we need to make an application to our regulators to ensure that they approve that coin listing. And we cannot list a coin that has not been approved by our regulator. The process of doing this is different between the UAE and Bahrain, but nonetheless, we need a green light from our regulator to list an additional coin. And those regulators have their own factors that they take into account before you can list. They also have their own red lines that you cannot cross in terms of what you can list.
Yes.
Especially those privacy coins.
Exactly. That's the perfect example. So we're never going to list privacy coins. First, because it's not the right thing to do. But second of all, because our regulators would not allow it.
Yeah. Ben, maybe you can tell us a bit, if you make an application to the regulator, how fastly do you get some feedback? So is it like 1 day, 1 week, 1 month? Because I think for the audience, interacting with the regulator always something special, right? Yes. So how does this interaction? I'm sure it's the regulators in the region are very strong, and they have a very good teams and very good reputation, and things move very efficiently. Yeah. But if you can share a bit with the audience, like how does this look like, in general?
Yeah. So not just for coin listing, but for any kind of demand, the process is quite similar. You start by sending an email to your regulator by saying, "Hey, we'd like to do this or this." We find the regulators very responsive. It's not a month-long process before you get an answer. That's a myth. Yeah. The regulators in the Middle East are extremely responsive. You have a regular relationship with them. You have their phone numbers. You send them an email, they'll reply to you the next day. Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to approve what you're asking for the next day, but the conversation starts extremely fast. Now, obviously, depending on what you're asking for, the regulator's going to analyze what you're asking for. They're going to do their research. They're going to do their due diligence. They're going to ask you a lot of questions to ensure the protection of the end customer. Because at the end of the day, what's the regulator's role? Is to protect the end customer. That is the person who's going to use those services. Yeah. So they're doing their role very well, very diligently, very professionally in checking every aspect of our proposition to ensure that customer protection is there. Yeah. So that, depending on the complexity of what you're asking for, can be short or long. It's difficult to put a time on it. But I would say that we do not have any frustration in the time it takes. Yeah. They are very, very reactive. And they're eager to help the industry grow in a well-governed and well-operated manner, which is fair.
Yeah, I have to say that the regulators in the region, in particular in the UAE, from my perspective, I've been only in the UAE now for over a year, but I have to say that my impression as well, and my understanding, and really the feedback that I see is that the people here are very open to bring in the right products and services to the people, where everybody can benefit, both from the users, but also from companies offering that services. And there is a very good vibe, let's call it like that, between the stakeholders. And really everybody wants to bring more trust to the region, more right products, and really build the UAE and both the region to be something that is the leading region around the world. This is my, and I think all of us are very proud, therefore, to be here in the UAE, in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, not to also to mention other Emirates like Ras Al Khaimah, which with Ragdao also has a very specific offering. I think it's very strong. I don't know, Demetrios, how you see it. You have also moved back to the region and now running and opening an office and set up here.
We said it also in a past podcast. We said if you ask for help here in this region, you will get it. And this doesn't happen everywhere in the world. So we are very happy and blessed to be here.
Yes. Just wanted to say, Ben, thank you for transparently sharing all of this. I think it's very important for the industry and also for the region and for UAE. At Blockcast, we want to bring the key stakeholders and key leaders to share their experiences. And as we are a growing crypto ecosystem globally, a lot of eyes are on the region and on UAE and on the key stakeholders. So really wanted to thank you for sharing so transparently, because actually this builds trust. Yes. And also when people have such close eyes on UAE, on the region, on Dubai, on Abu Dhabi, when people want to also ask questions, we are ready to answer them. And really wanted to thank you. Thanks a lot for sharing so transparently, because I think it's very important for the whole region and for the industry.
Should we talk a little bit about Token 2049?
I was going to say, let's now talk about how everybody is going to be busy. So what are your plans for Token 2049?
Next week's going to be a crazy week.
Yeah.
You just have to look at the Token website
what
download.
Will it be on? Red Bull, Gatorade, Prime?
You told us you don't drink coffee, so how are you going to push
I've never
this?
seen that in my life. It's unbelievable.
Yes.
You go to the Token website, Token 2049 website.
I haven't even visited the event.
You should try. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
You download the list of side events to the conference. It's not even the conference. It's the side events.
Yeah.
I haven't counted them. There must be 200 side events over 3 or 4 days.
Yes.
It's absolutely mind-blowing. So I guess that
50 events a day.
I guess that the entire global industry is going to be here. Clearly, I've been receiving messages from a lot of our partners that are based in Europe, in Asia, everywhere that are going to be in town. So it's going to be an amazing week for the industry. I think, again, it puts the UAE in the center of the map when it comes to cryptocurrencies. And when you think that 3 years ago, we didn't even have a regulation for crypto in the region, it's absolutely crazy what it has become in only 3 years.
Yes. Ben, how can people most easily get in touch with you? Are you going to be at the conference, or do usually people DM you? Like, how can they get a hold of you? If to maybe get also a bit of input for the audience? How does this look like?
Yes, absolutely. So the Rain team is going to be at Token 2049. So we'll be here.
Do you have a booth, or is going to be?
No, we don't have a booth this year.
Yep.
But we're obviously going to be there, meeting a lot of the industry. Obviously LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. Don't hesitate. Send a message. We're always eager to have passionate conversations about the industry.
Yes, excellent. And I hope, Demetrios, I think, are you doing something small with your team?
I think the team in the US are preparing also an event.
Yes.
It's not yet fully finalized, but we're starting inviting some people. Yeah. And of course, we will be delighted to host both of you.
Thank you.
In our event. But again, if you want to make something nice, it takes a lot of time, of course, and a lot of effort. Yeah. But I think we're in this process of finalizing.
Yes.
But also the way I approach the Token 2049, I find 2 or 3 events that I need to go, and I build everything across those. If an event is closed, maybe I will go. But I have my 2, 3 favorite events. Otherwise, it's mind-blowing.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah. I left a little bit of time open, thinking at some point when you get there, you understand a little bit a trend of where do people go, which events, etc. So,
one thing that was very interesting to add is that when I visited Consensus in Hong Kong and as well Paris Blockchain Week in Paris, many people were talking about Dubai and Token 2049. It was almost the second, third question was, usually directed towards me. Oh, Anton, are you going to be as well as Token? So it seems we're building something here, at least in the context of Token 2049. We're building a strong platform for people to come, present, meet the right stakeholders. But I definitely want to add as well, personally, the one that I like a lot last year was Abu Dhabi Finance Week.
Yeah.
And as well a bit more private, a bit more a specific, smaller setting was Satoshi Roundtable. So if I would have to say like, and this is also what a lot of people ask me in Paris, for instance, what are the 3 key events to attend? I would tell them Token, Satoshi Roundtable, Abu Dhabi Finance Week. I don't know how you see it, but I felt like this is because there's so many events in Dubai, so I always have to warn people about that. Yeah,
I completely agree, and I would add that Abu Dhabi Finance Week. If you are in the institutional space, it's definitely the right place to be. Maybe last year I would add the BTC MENA conference in Abu Dhabi, which also was very interesting.
Shout out to our friend Craig for Bitcoin MENA.
Yeah.
We have really good friends in Bitcoin.
So I would add that fourth one, but I agree with you on I guess Token 2049 has really emerged as the crypto event of the year at this point on the calendar. When it comes to scale.
To the region, because Bitcoin Las Vegas is gonna be huge as well. I mean,
No, I'm talking about
region.
on the UAE scene.
It used to be Bitcoin Miami.
Yeah.
Yes.
But now they moved it to Las Vegas. But when it comes to the region, yes, we're looking forward for Token 2049 as well. I think it's gonna be probably the event to be this year.
I would maybe add a fifth one, which has crossovers with the fintech world as a whole. It's GITEX.
Yes.
On the Expand North Star side, because you end up having not just crypto players, because it's great to be with crypto players within your own little ecosystem, etc. It's great to catch up with the entire industry that flies over. But at some point, you also want to build bridges with other fintechs that are not necessarily within the blockchain Web3 or crypto space. And I found that GITEX is quite interesting for that perspective.
Ben, may we ask you, what are the plans for the summer? I know that in 2023 you went to the Alps, which got interrupted by a phone call. So how does the summer look like for you and for Rain as well? Like because it's for our audience, if you don't know it, but I'm sure everybody knows, it's very hot here. It's very different vibes than usually, let's say, the winter time period, where it's very pleasant. How does the summer look like for you?
It's a good question. I don't know yet. I just came back from a break during the Eid break. So that's
where did you go?
That's a question for my boss. That's my wife.
Where did you go during Eid?
I went back into the Alps. So you start to see you start to see a recurring theme here.
Yes. Is it because of skiing or something in particular, or are you just fond of the Alps?
Yeah. So look, I'm a big mountain fan. In the winter for skiing, and also in the summer for more like mountain climbing and things like this. So I do enjoy. Okay. And we're lucky to be living by the beach here in the UAE.
Yes.
So it's true that I also go to the beach during the summer elsewhere, but it's true that we tend to go as a family quite a bit into the mountains.
That's very nice, actually. Yeah. And you go more towards...
And you lived in Switzerland for a long time, so you know what I mean.
And I had to ask you then, do you more go on the French side, on the Swiss side, even in Austria and Italy? How does your... I mean, if you can share, how does your...
So look, all of them are amazing.
Yes.
And I think that I went to the Italian Alps last summer, into the Dolomites. Yeah. Outstanding.
I've been...
I highly recommend. And I'm French, and I'm recommending Italy, so it means something.
So this is strong statements here. Nice.
But usually, I go to the French side, to the French Alps. Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, usually there's. I mean, I just know it's okay. Depend on how high you go, but it's less snow. It's more. Do you do hiking, or is this some ski?
In the summer, yes. Yeah. In the summer, it's mostly hiking or climbing or mountain bikes, or like there's loads of activities. Yes. In the winter, it's mostly for skiing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I understand. Yeah. Demetrios, how do plans look like for you and Blockfields? And I know I saw yesterday on LinkedIn you're participating in some conferences, panels. How does it look like? Yeah.
I think hopefully all the conferences will finish, and maybe I will spend my summer in Chicago. We will see,
Okay.
but it's in the plans, and of course maybe a Greek island
Nice.
Yes.
for a week, maybe a little bit plus, maybe 10 days, but we will see. I want to spend more time with my company and spend some more time in America this summer, if I can, of course, and prepare for Abu Dhabi Finance Week
Yes.
and all the conference to come that will lead to Abu Dhabi Finance Week, including the Formula One.
Yes. That's very nice. Yeah.
What about you, Anton? What are your
from-
plans?
So for me, I'm based here, and a lot of the company, a lot of the team members are here in the UAE. So, and still we are far behind than the phase that you are. In a sense, there has to be a product launch, and it has to acquire the right regulatory framework. So this will be a lot of effort during the summer time period. But I usually say that my location is decided by the family, as almost like God, says. So I'm Croatian originally, so I will definitely go visit my family. It's very important for me to spend some time with the family, especially Croatian coast. I mean, as you know,
nice.
It's very beautiful. So I will try to spend a little bit of time there. But as well, I think like our own, all of us, we have our day-to-day operational activities, but also then some conferences, activities on the business side. I think I might visit Asia a bit, maybe for a few specific events, to meet the people, partners, thinking a bit in the future. But definitely I have to say this will be my first full summer in the UAE, which I look forward to experience.
A serious summer.
Serious summer, but I think also it's a good combination sometimes to take a bit of a break during the summer, and Croatia is a very nice place to do that. So maybe I snap a few pictures from a sailing boat or from the beach,
we will all be jealous.
I mean, I know that you will all enjoy it as well, but and also hopefully that my family comes and visits UAE as well a bit more to see how it is here, spend a bit more time. But perhaps my parents are a bit older, so for them too much heat is not the easiest.
Maybe you will bring them after September.
Yeah, I think that's and as you mentioned, there are events coming later into the year, BTC MENA, and definitely Abu Dhabi Finance Week, as Demetrios said and you said as well. I was very impressed. The capital of capital, right? This is how Abu Dhabi is positioning itself, and I think it's a realistic positioning. It's a leading environment and ecosystem. Yeah. So these are kind of my thoughts a little bit. Yeah, on the summer.
Good.
So I think I just wanted to say it was a great show. First, again, to say it's always great to bring the key leaders in the region and in the UAE on the show, and to hear your thoughts, your experiences, and also about the future. And especially thank you for sharing a bit how does the operations inside a crypto platform look like. I think this for me was fascinating. Demetrios, I know when we were talking about token listings and liquidity and custody and everything, I think it resonated with you, and really wanted to say thanks a lot. It was a blast, and looking forward to hearing more about your calls in the Alps. I see it's always something.
Gonna start following him in Instagram, in Twitter now,
so,
all across.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was really lovely, and thanks for putting me on the show.
Thanks for visiting us, and I think this is a very beautiful podcast.
Yes,
and our audience will be definitely enthusiastic to watch it.
Yeah. And to wrap it up for the audience, Demetrios always tells me, like the video and then subscribe to the channel. So please do that. And looking forward to having our next guest on the show. And I hope you enjoyed the episode. It was an absolute blast. Thank you and see you soon.